Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our discussion today for roster data management. My name is Brian Griffin, and I am the GA Pre-K System Manager. I'm going to give it just a minute or two, and then we're going to get started. Just want to make sure everybody gets in here. All right, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining today. My name is Brian Griffin. I'm the GA Pre-K System Manager, and we're going to go ahead and get started in our discussion today about roster data management and submission. Before we get started, I just have a couple of reminders. So, if you have general questions, meaning questions that are going to be for the good of the group, feel free to post them in the chat box. At the end of the session, I will take all questions for the good of the group and I will respond to them. If you have program specific questions, these should be directed to your assigned pre-K specialist. So if they are specific questions with your program or your classes, please reach out to your pre-K specialist for those. There is no need to check in for this webinar, meaning you don't need to say you're in attendance in the chat box or anything like that. And we will provide answers to the most frequently asked questions and post them on the GA Pre-K webpage. This webinar will also be recorded and posted. So moving right along, we're going to talk about managing rosters. So the first thing is, how do you get there to manage rosters? So to manage rosters and to manage your students with the rosters, you're going to navigate to the Manage Rosters tab on the left-hand side. So go to the Manage Rosters tab on the left-hand side panel in the navigation panel. Click on the Manage button on the desired site tile. So if you have multiple sites that you cover, you can click on each individual site. You will be directed to the selected site page. Once there, you can view your rosters. On the Student Rosters tab, the roster details will be displayed. So you can see them all for that site. Rosters are generated based on the roster count date and the students included in the class reporting manager. So what that means is, in the scenario for our first roster cycle, Friday is our roster count date. So September 12th is the roster count date. On September 12th, any students who are currently entered in your class reporting manager and are eligible to be on this roster, the system will create roster records for those students. So on Friday, you can go to your Manage Rosters tab, and the roster records will be generated right there for you. Okay. Roster records are not generated until each count date for each roster cycle. Once you're there in the Manage Rosters, you can search the roster. You can search using the global search bar right there under this section, Site Roster page. And you can search for the student by entering their first name or their last name. You can also filter the roster. So on the roster page, you click the filter button and you can filter results by either the school year, you can filter by roster cycle, you can filter by individual classes, you can filter by socioeconomic status, meaning category 1 versus category 2. You can also filter for transportation, those who are transported, those who are not, multilingual learners, and then also any special education services that are provided. Once you've made your selections in filtering or searching, your search results will be displayed based on the selection you've entered. Before submitting your rosters, you want to double check your data. So you'll look at your rosters. Are all the students listed? Are the students in the correct class or classes? Are the names spelled correctly? Are the birth dates entered correctly? Is the begin date correct? If the student ended, is the end date correct? Now, as you're looking at that, if you notice, oh no, I'm missing Johnny. Okay, if you're missing a student, then what you will need to do is you go to your class reporting manager to add that student. So you'll navigate to the class reporting manager. On the site page, go to the student data tab and click add student. You will be directed to the add student page. Once you are on the add student page, you will have the option to add students. You're going to want to do this manually. Obviously, if you're just missing 1 or 2 students, you're going to want to manually enter the students. And you'll go through and you'll enter all of their information. So you'll enter their first name, middle name, last name, date of birth, social security number, their gender. Were they twins? Were they a multi-birth? And then also you'll answer the questions about transportation, about their socioeconomic status. If they are a category 1 student, you will select one or all of the services that they receive there, but you only need to select one. Then you will also answer if they're a multilingual learner. If they are, you will choose the additional language that they speak. If they have special education services, and if they are in a blended Head Start pre-K classroom, and then also their ethnicity and the race for the student. Finally, you will also enter their parent information. So the parent or guardian's first and last name, email address, zip code, and the relationship that they hold with the child. Once you have all of that information entered, you will select the class that the student is going to go to, and you will enter a begin date. So if you forgot to add the student and they started on August 4th, then you'll select the class that you're putting the student in. You'll give them a begin date of August 4th, and you're not going to give them an end date because they're still there. Once you've entered it and you hit save and submit, the class reporting manager will create that record for you. So you will be able to see the student in your class reporting manager. When you go back to manage rosters, you will not see that student listed yet. Okay. You have to wait 24 hours for that student record, that roster record to be generated. So once you've entered that student in the class reporting manager, come back the next morning, the roster record should be generated. And then you would be able to submit. Now, as you're going through and you're reviewing your rosters before you submit, let's say that you notice that a student's information was incorrect. If a student's information is incorrect and needs to be edited, you can make those updates directly in the system. So if you notice that this roster record for Johnny had his name spelled incorrectly, you go back to your class reporting manager and you update the spelling of the student's name. If the birth date's wrong, you update the birth date. Same for the social security number, gender, and the begin and end dates. Any of that information, you would update it in the class reporting manager. Once you've made those updates in the class reporting manager, that roster record that was already created and in the manage roster section should automatically update as well. So once you've made those updates to the spelling of the name, the birth date, all of that, hit save. Go back to your manage rosters and verify that the roster record has been corrected. If it's not corrected, you'll want to wait 24 hours and it should be updated the next day. Okay? Once you verified that all the information is correct, all the students are entered, you can submit your rosters. To submit a student roster, you'll go to the roster tile and then click the submit roster button. You can also submit all the rosters for the site at once by clicking the submit all rosters button. Once you've done that, a pop-up window will appear where you'll have to click the accept and submit button. Please remember that only project directors can submit rosters. So our data manager users and our site directors can update information in the class reporting manager. They can view the rosters to verify that information is correct, but they cannot submit the roster. Only a project director can submit the roster. You also have the option to print rosters. To print the rosters, you'll navigate to the Manage Roster section. Once you're there, you'll see a print roster up in the right-hand corner. You'll click that print roster button. It will open up the roster cycle print pop-up window. You can filter it by year, by roster cycle, and click print roster. This will generate an Excel spreadsheet for you. And on that Excel spreadsheet, it will have the teacher information, student information, all that information that you would want to provide to your teachers. So you can use that to provide to your teachers. We have some resources to support success. As usual, we have the user guides that are all posted on the GA Pre-K webpage. And then we also have quarterly newsletters that will be coming out. Mandy and I are actually working on our next one that should come out in the next couple of weeks. So we're excited about that. On our GA Pre-K webpage, we have resources available. The resources include tutorial videos, frequently asked questions, provider resources, meaning handouts, one-pagers, quick tip sheets. We have some user guides for the primary authorized user, for the data user, for the finance user, and also for the site director. And then all of our communications and our recorded webinars that we have that are related to GA Pre-K are also housed on the GA Pre-K webpage. If you need help, the best way and the fastest route to get support is to submit a help desk ticket. You can also email gaprek.support@decal.ga.gov. We have 3 people who are manning that inbox, so you will either get a response from myself, from Mandy Sloan or from George Davis. And if you need additional support, you can also request support through bookings. We have some time set up for our roster analysts to support providers with entering student and teacher information, and you can schedule one-on-ones with them through bookings. And that, y'all, is all of the slides for how to enter rosters and maintain your rosters and submit them. So I'm going to take this time just to look to see if we had any questions, and I will answer the questions that came through. You will have to wait until Friday to see the class reporting manager data on the roster tab. So on Friday, when you log into the system, you should be able to click on manage rosters and you should be able to see those roster records generated. If you notice that a student is in the wrong class, reported in the wrong class, you will need to go back to your class reporting manager to make that change, or you can reach out to GA Pre-K support or do a help desk ticket, and we can help walk you through that process to make sure it's corrected. If you put a wrong start date on a student, the system won't let you change it. How do you enter the correct date? The system should allow you to change begin and end dates for students if you incorrectly entered them. You would do that by checking the box next to the student's name, scrolling over to the right, and then clicking that pencil icon. And then you can update the begin and end dates for the student. If you try to do that and you continue to get an error message, my suggestion would be to submit a help desk ticket and make sure that you include your category as student teacher data, your subcategory as student data, and then also include a screenshot of the error message that you are seeing so we can look into it. The other thing I want to tell you all about error messages is that if an error message appears in a red box, it's a blocker, meaning the system is not going to allow you to go any further. So if you get a message and it appears in a red box when you're entering something, that's your red error message, and that's a blocker. You can't go any further. You need to take a screenshot of that, submit a help desk ticket so we can figure out what's going on. If that error message is in gold or a yellow tone, that's just a warning. It's just a reminder saying, are you sure you want to do this? If you can confirm that all the information is correct, then yes, go ahead and do it. So that yellow message, warning message, is not a blocker. You can still submit that student, save that student record. I had lots of folks ask about the start date. So if you started school before August 1st, in the system, the start date for all students is August 1st. On your calendar, your approved calendar, if your start date was July 30th, if that was your official start date and that's approved on your calendar, that's on your calendar. And that's how we're basing the pay and the number of days. That's how payments are calculated through the calendar. But for the start date in the system for students, you'll have to use August 1st. This is a great question. Can rosters only be shown in Excel? At this time, when you click the print roster button, it will create a Excel spreadsheet, or if you're using Google Sheets, you could probably open it up with Google Sheets, but it's basically a CSV file. Which user roles can enter data into the class reporting manager? So the users that can enter data is the primary authorized user, the project director, site director, data management users. Those all four of those users can also review roster data. Only the project director and primary authorized user can submit the rosters. Can principals enter their rosters? Yes. So if a principal is the site director, has the role of site directors, they can enter students into the class reporting manager and they can view the information entered in the manage roster section, but they cannot submit the roster. Only the project director and primary authorized user can submit the roster. This is being recorded. This webinar is being recorded, and I am going to post it within the next day or two on the GA Pre-K webpage. I will also probably post a banner message with a direct link for you all to get to the recorded webinar as well. What information will be included in the roster date of birth? So on the print roster screen, the options there, it's got the name, the date of birth, the gender, and I think socioeconomic status. It does not include confidential information like the SSN. It does have the GA Pre-K student ID number included as well. It is not necessary to enter an end date for a student. The only time you are going to end date a student is if they have withdrawn from your program, meaning they have left, maybe they moved out of state, maybe there was an opening at another location that they wanted to move to, whatever the reason is, you do not end date a student in the system until they have officially withdrawn or left your program. Now, if when you're end dating a student, the end date you should use is the last day they physically attended your program. The print roster button will be available once the first roster is generated, which will be Friday. Once it's generated, that roster is available, that print roster button is available for the rest of the year. And you can do it for each roster cycle. You can choose which ones you want to pull. And it's generated, you don't have to wait until you submit the roster to actually generate that print roster option. The children's names have to be alphabetical. And on the manage roster screen, you can actually filter them. But I think they are alphabetical right now. If a student starts on Friday, are they included in the count? Yes. So if the student is there on or before the count date, they should have a roster record generated for them. So on Friday, if you have a new student that's added, they just started your program on Friday, and you log in and you see those roster records are already created, but you don't have a roster record for your new student, you'll go into the class reporting manager, add the new student, save, wait 24 hours, and come back and you should see that roster record being generated. So this is a great question. How do you change the social security numbers after submission date? For example, they bring in a social security card in October. That's a great question. So when you entered them in the class reporting manager and the parents did not provide an SSN, you had them complete the SSN waiver form and you put the reason in the system why they were not providing their social security number. When you get that updated information, so let's say in October they come to you and they have that information, you simply go into the class reporting manager and you update that information. Once you've updated that in the class reporting manager, on the next roster count date, when the next roster count cycle 2 rolls around, that updated information will be included on roster 2 and we'll update that roster record. One thing about the Social Security number, when you go to edit it, when you're in the class reporting manager and you click that pencil icon and open up the student information, you'll notice that the Social Security number, you will only be able to see the last 4 digits. To see all of the digits, you have to take your cursor and click into that field, and then the whole Social Security number will appear. And then you can edit it and update it there. If you started on 8/4, August 4th, that's your first day for students. So yes, you would give them a start date of August 4th. You should always give them the actual day they started unless the start date was before August 1st. So a roster count date is the day that we use to decide when a student record, like what's the cutoff date for a student to be added to this roster cycle. That's the roster count date. The roster due date is the date that the roster is due. So in this scenario for roster 1, our roster count date is September 12th. So any students that are in the classroom on or before the count date should be included on the roster record. On September 19th, Friday the 19th, that is the roster due date. That is when you should have all of your rosters submitted by. Data managers can print rosters, site directors can print rosters. Um, Anyone that can view the roster, that screen should have the capability to print them. All right. Um, I think I answered all the questions for the good of the group. If there were any other questions that you asked and we might not have gotten answered, I have to see that somebody's raising their hand. If you could put your question in the chat and we'll see what that question is. You are not going to see any rosters today. Roster records will be generated on Friday. So if you go to manage rosters right now, it's going to be empty. It's going to say nothing to show. They are not going to appear until the roster count date. All right. So someone is asking if there's a way that we can have the print option before the roster 1. That's a really great question, and I will say that it is something we are working on. But at this time, we don't have that ability due to some security issues. But we are working to resolve that, and hopefully, we'll have another print option other than under the roster. But at this time, the only option to print your rosters is under the print roster screen. We don't have that option in the class reporting manager. There is a reconciliation training. It is scheduled for tomorrow. So if you have not registered for reconciliation training, I would really suggest that you register. If you log into the GA Pre-K system, there is a banner message that was posted today with instructions on how to register for that. If you have a hard time getting registered, you can also email prek.training and ask them to register for you. and they will register you for the class. And they will answer all questions about when the reconciliation portal will open. We had hoped that it was going to open sooner, but we had a couple of things that we need to work out in the system before we released it. Um, Once it is open, they will discuss extending the due date and all of that. There is not a link for me to put for you for the reconciliation webinar. You will actually have to register for it through our PDS system. Okay. And to register teachers for training, you just go to your GA Pre-K portal, log into the portal, scroll on the homepage, scroll to the bottom, click the GA PDS link. That will log you in to PDS where you can register your teachers for training. Some providers have reported getting an error message if it's the first time you've used it, or maybe you've never logged into PDS. The system will create an account for you. So you'll have to wait 24 hours and come back the next day, and you should have access and be able to register your teachers. If a teacher's social security number is wrong, how can you edit it? You should be able to edit the teacher's SSN the same way that you do. No, you cannot edit a teacher's SSN. That information is being pulled from PDS. So the teacher will need to reach out to log into her PDS account and update her SSN in PDS. Once it's updated in PDS and the two systems sync overnight, you should be able to see that update in GPK. If you are having issues with getting teachers registered because everything is full, I would send an email to pre-K training, and Jan and Susan will probably help you find some classes that you can get them in. I think that would be your first point of contact is pre-K training. And I might, when you reach out to them, I would also copy your specialist on it so they're aware that you're having a hard time getting the teachers registered for training. Just double checking I didn't miss anything. So your wait list is uh, someone's asking about waitlist submission. In the old system, when you submitted your rosters, you also had to submit your waitlist. In the new system, the waitlist is its own section in the GA Pre-K system. So just like the class reporting manager, it's real time. You can enter students and exit students in real time. It's the exact same for waiting list. So for waiting list, you just navigate to waiting list on the left-hand side in the navigation panel, click on it and enter your student information there. We will review the chat and create a frequently asked question to address any questions that we may have missed. You can also always submit a help desk ticket or email gaprek.support@decal.ga.gov to get additional information. And if you have any other questions that are directly related to student data entry or teacher entry, you can ask us. Send an email or submit a help desk ticket or reach out to your pre-K specialist. We will create frequently asked questions. I'll post it soon. I want to tell everyone thank you for coming. And I look forward to our next webinar where we can share additional tips and tricks for working through the GA Pre-K system. Thank you and have a wonderful day.